Greetings, fellow humans. I wanted to talk a little bit about anger. I had an experience this morning. I had to leave the house early. It's a weekend day. I needed to get something from the store. And as I got to the front door, I could hear sirens, the sirens of an ambulance. And, it's incredibly loud, and I can see that there's no traffic of any kind. This guy's coming down off the highway and heading up the road, and there are no cars anywhere. It's a weekend morning. And I became enraged, like so fast. And a big part of it actually was that there was an element of righteousness. He doesn't need a siren on. He's wrong. Oh, God, I got so excited. And so by the time I got out the house, down the steps, into my car to where I could yell at the top of my lungs, "Who's the siren for?" And I called him a name. And, which is the exact thing I was angry about, was him making noise when people are trying to sleep, like my pregnant wife, for instance. And then I started laughing at myself because it was all ridiculous. And I've been dealing with my own anger for a long, long time. So it became really funny to me. But I also noticed that my heart was racing, my shoulders were completely crunched, my core was tightened, everything was like, I was amped up, man, I'm ready to go. And I did. I had some fantasies about chasing that ambulance. I was going to confront him somewhere, for a split second. I was going to be the righteous angel of justice. Because somebody had a siren on. Anyway, I have a long history in my personal life, in my family and in my schooling. I'm not going to talk about my family, but in when I was in school, I was a pudgy, asthmatic kid from a divorced family in early, first, second, third, fourth grade. And I wasn't allowed on the playground. It was just bullying. It was constant bullying. And I couldn't deal with it. I didn't know what to do. So I just didn't go to the playground after school. And eventually I wanted to. I really wanted to go play. And so I just was like, I'm just gonna go and nobody's gonna make me leave. And that's what happened. I ended up having a series of fights that day, and then I finally lost, and there was some sixth grader beating the heck out of me, and I got rescued by another sixth grader. It was like big drama. There were no teachers around. It was after school, but somehow, a couple of kids were. I was pretty bloodied, but some other kids were bloodied, and I guess some phone calls were made. And prior to that, I had been like the bookish kid, he's a sweet kid, he's a good kid, he's really smart, let's help him out. Or, the teachers went out of their way to kind of take care of me at that age. And then all that stopped. And I didn't know why. It took me, till many years later to understand that by embodying anger and then being violent, I had put myself into a different category. I was no longer, a sweet kid, a nice kid, a smart kid. Now I was something else, a problem. But I was able to go to the playground, and while I was still in that school, I no longer had any problems. But we moved around a lot. Ended up bouncing back and forth between Hawaii and Boston. And, in Hawaii, there are Samoans and Tongans and they're locals. I came from Boston there. I'm a Howley. There was no, getting in fights, man. Like I ran like hell. But I still kept so I couldn't use anger or embody it in that situation. But I learned because anger is a secondary emotion. I learned that much later, and I know it to be true. What happens is when I'm in a situation where I'm frustrated or made to feel an uncomfortable feeling, like frustration, powerlessness, sadness, even, or even discomfort. A feeling that's unpleasant to feel, loss. Anger is so much more powerful to feel. Like, even in cartoons, like anger makes them bigger. Super Saiyan, they get huge and burst into explosions and flames. But so I learned to nurture the feeling of anger, and I learned to I kind of embody it, and then, I didn't stay in Hawaii. I went back and forth, and in Boston and its surroundings, it worked pretty well for me almost all the time. I could sort of project this aura of, like, menace, like I'm dangerous, you don't know what I might do, like I don't know what I was doing back then, but it worked pretty well until it absolutely stopped and became like a crushing burden. And it remains so. And I have found it easier and easier to deal with, like in terms of my own anger. But it's just what I have found is that when I sit with the uncomfortable feel, if I can spot, if I can have any awareness of what's happening and identify, like, there's that original, no, I'm feeling powerless. I'm feeling helpless. So what I need to do is just process that feeling and allow it to stay here, because then transformation can happen. Then integration can happen. Then growth, change, or acceptance. Lots of things can happen because you're uncomfortable. Your brain will figure out a way to put itself in a different, like that pressure, that discomfort is energy. That energy wants to do stuff. So I don't know. I'm just really curious. I hope I can get some comments. I would love to know what people think about, anger, because movies, almost every movie I see, there's a violent hero who embodies anger, and he's what we're looking up to. And the only difference between him and the villain is their motivation. They're both angry and destroying stuff, and I'm just curious what if anyone has any thoughts on that. Anyway, you guys have a great evening.